What's going on, Texas? And welcome to another episode of Texans Talking Football. I, of course, am one of your hosts, SAJ, and
What's up,
to
everybody? I'm BD.
that guy right there,
That's
BD.
right.
Welcome to another episode. This week, we've got a lot of heartbreak to talk about, uh, and we will definitely get to that. But we're going to have a bunch of football stuff to talk about, not just XFL and not just NFL, but we are going to be also talking about the NAL and the IFL that's going to be getting started here in just a couple of weeks, in addition to the USFL. So let's go ahead and kick off tonight's talk with the insanity that is the XFL. Our first game this week was Seattle at Arlington, and that was Friday night. Brian, did you get a chance to catch that game?
I was poking in and out of the game. It pretty much went down like I was expecting it to, so I wasn't. I was doing some other stuff, but I was kind of checking on it in the background, watching it for a few minutes here and there.
It did not turn out as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be honest. I was expecting Seattle to run all over Arlington, and that did not necessarily happen. However, it did turn out like we predicted that Seattle was going to, get the win. But I thought DiNucci was just going to absolutely light up Arlington secondaries, and for the most part, I mean, he did okay. But he didn't do as much as I thought he did. And some surprising results from this game. So let's go ahead and break down the numbers, right? The Nooch, of course, went 21-32, 266, averaged 8.3, right? One touchdown, one interception. However, the one thing that surprised me is that Gordon is still in the mix. Remember, we talked a couple of weeks ago that there was a little bit of beef, a little bit of hatred between DiNucci and Gordon.
But Gordon even said during the game, I believe it was this past game, kind of a where is Gordon? Like he's all these, these plays, these games you would be expecting him to dominate. He's not anywhere. He had 3 catches last game. I mean, that's not what you would expect from Josh Gordon.
Well, let's talk about that. So this game against Arlington, and I'd have to pull up the last couple of weeks' games to see Gordon's numbers, of course, but his numbers were very much Josh Gordon numbers. Okay, 3 receptions, 4 targets. He got 43 yards total, averaged 14.3. One play was 24 yards.
Yep.
Right. So here's what I'm thinking is happening. People are still thinking that Josh Gordon is the Josh Gordon of old, right? The NFL Josh Gordon. And he's getting a lot of double coverage looks, and a lot of plays are designed to draw coverage towards one side of the field, and then they are open on the other side. And so that's where like VZ and Jackson are getting, well, even Pearson are getting a lot of the action, right? VZ 3 receptions.
He leads the league in receiving, does he not? No, I'm sorry. Pearson leads the league in receiving.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, I'd have to look at the individual player stats.
Yeah, I just pulled them up.
Okay. So Pearson is leading. Pearson was targeted 7 times. He got 5 catches, 31 yards total, 6.2 average, right? Longest play was 13 yards. So he's still getting some action. So if you've got Pearson and Gordon out there on the field making plays, obviously you've got, I mean, you can't have every receiver double coverage. So in double coverage rather. So if you line up in a 3 wide set, you've only got 4 backs to cover 3 dudes.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to open up opportunities. Again, I expected a lot more yards than 266. 266 is nothing to laugh at or turn your nose up at. Those are impressive numbers. I just would have expected more touchdowns than 1 touchdown, So sorry about that, folks. I'm drinking unsanctioned tea here.
Never mind. I was going to say I think they had a pretty good game on the ground, but they only had one touchdown there too.
Well, DiNucci had a great game on the ground, right?
Yeah.
9 carries, 52 yards, average 5.8. Hammonds had a pretty decent game, 7 carries, 45 yards. But that's still, I mean, that's, roughly 50 yards a game. Those are definitely not big numbers. You've got Devion Smith over on Arlington's side, 12 carries, 61 yards. Longest carry was 18. Those are a little bit better numbers. But if you look at how they spread the ball around, they had, it's essentially the same. Looking at the numbers here, Seattle and Arlington, 2 guys besides the quarterback were the only ones that were rushing.
Yep.
So I expected a little bit more than that on the ground. But let's look at Arlington's passing, right? And this is where, you feel kind of bad for a Stoops team, but you knew it was coming, right? Plitt, 19 to 29, 213, average 7.3. No touchdowns, 1 interception. That's kind of typical. Anderson came in 1 for 1, 5 yards, and no touchdowns, no interceptions. So, I would say that's close to probably 110, 115 QB rating. Not impressive, but the numbers don't lie, right?
But what we talked about last week, Arlington picked up Perez. Do we see him this week and Plitt and Anderson just go start riding the bench?
This next week, I would say most likely yes. Where are we at? Here's my schedule. This next week, Arlington is playing Orlando. I see them putting Perez in.
I think so. I think they gave him 1 week just to kind of you saw him there. He was kind of coaching up, the QBs on the sideline and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think they just kind of give him a week to get used to the offense and they throw him out there.
Right. Yeah. Arlington was not in the same situation as San Antonio was. They had plenty of quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
San Antonio was forced to throw God, why can't I remember his name? Yeah. Ben Kurt and pass in without a whole bunch of time. We literally, our quarterback got hurt on a Wednesday on like one of the first plays from scrimmage, in a practice. We had nobody else. All of our hope was resting on a quarterback that got injured the week before.
Yep.
So it was just bad. And we're gonna talk about how San Antonio's responded to that in a little bit when we talk about their game. But overall, the Sea Dragons and the Renegades game it turned out basically like we thought. I just thought Seattle was just gonna run the table on them. And so I don't know if maybe they laid off towards the end. It didn't really seem like it, but overall, it definitely turned out the way we thought it would turn out. So, looking back at the game, the play-by-play, Seattle definitely had the ball, and essentially just kind of ran the clock out. So the Arlington did have the ball in the last 6.5 minutes. Basically, they managed to run it down for that touchdown, but they got it to 2 minutes. And then I want to say this is the one where they threw the pick, wasn't it? No, they went for the touchdown for the 2-point conversion, and they failed, and then there was a penalty on the kick. So they pretty much kind of just gave up. So yeah, it was not a great game on Arlington's part. But like we talked about, this is a Bob Stoops team, and I hate to keep saying that over and over and over again, but this is what he does when it comes towards the end of the season. He just, things just fall apart for him. And I don't know if it's him or if it's the team. Maybe it's partly both, do you think? Because he expects so much from the team and he pushes so hard in the first half that they just don't have the juice for the end?
I don't know what it is. I mean, it seems like we talked about that with Stoops too, but also Wade Phillips. I mean, Wade Phillips, you could see it during the games. It's just like poor clock management killed him. I don't necessarily see that with the Stoops teams. Like, it's hard to kind of put your finger on what it is that that causes them to do that.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer myself. This is a Texas team that we're talking about, and as biased as we are, and as much as we want to give anybody north of San Antonio a hard time, you also kind of want to see them do somewhat well, right? And they're just kind of falling in step. Good for us, right? Because as everybody in the XFL South lost, that gave us an opportunity to push forward. Now, unfortunately, we didn't fulfill our end of the deal, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But the XFL South is up for grabs.
Absolutely.
Pretty much any team, even Orlando, could make a run and get into the playoffs. They won't finish the season out first, but they could easily sneak in the back door and take it to Houston if Houston manages to hold on. Any team that's in the XFL South that isn't Orlando has a chance for first place to finish out in first place. So that's good news for us, not necessarily great news for the Brahmas, though, because it's going to be a dogfight all the way up, right? So let's get off of the North Dallas neighborhood team, and let's talk about our beloved Brahmas. That was a heartbreaker for anybody that watched the game, anybody that is a Brahmas fan, anybody that's a fan of the XFL. This was one that everybody was looking forward to. Started out pretty solid, started out a pretty good game. We had the first kickoff return for a touchdown.
Right. We talked about it last week. We talked about it last week. Would we ever see it? We both said that we were, and hey, we were the first ones to do it. So,
yep. And it was done with commanding control of the ball.
Yep.
Right. You could not have designed a better play. Sorry, phone is blowing up while I'm trying to podcast here.
That's just rude and disrespectful of them.
I know, right? I know. I cannot believe that. Fred Brown, incredible guy, incredible player. He took this one to the house, 96 yards. And again, that's not uncommon in the NFL, although it is kind of becoming less and less frequent. But it's not uncommon for a kick returner to, run a 90-something yard kick back, for a touchdown. Yeah. But this is the first one in the XFL history. Well, XFL 3.0, right? And that's all we really care about because we didn't have a team before this.
Exactly.
But nobody else has been doing it. And we have talked about it. We talked about it last episode, how the numbers are climbing and how we're getting closer and closer. Well, San Antonio now holds that title. But so we had that happen. Everything was looking good. Ben Kurt had an incredible game until he got hurt. He went 22-31, 179 yards, 5.8 average, right? 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Pass came in. He went 2 for 6, 32 yards, 5.3. So not horrible, right? But there's a lot of things that were up in the air on this whole game. Nobody expected McClendon to come in and do 21-31, 264 yards and 2 touchdowns, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
We're waiting for Hundley to step up and do something, but Woodson has decided that McClendon's the guy right now. And I'm not sure, what the details are with all that. Maybe there's, some kind of conflict between, Hundley and Woodson. Maybe Hundley just needs more time. Maybe he's struggling with the playbook. I mean, there's a bunch of speculation, right? But nobody really knows exactly what's going on. But for whatever reason, Hundley was benched. I don't know that he was injured, so that wouldn't make sense to bench the guy who has the more experience. But obviously, McClendon has the hot hand,
and he looked pretty good too. He looked good.
He was very commanding in that game. As far as the ground attack, San Antonio put up a dismal 30 yards total, and 7 of that belonged to Ben Kurt, right? Patrick rushed 12 times, 20 yards total. His longest run was 4 yards, right? That keeps going back to the thing that we keep talking about over and over and over again.
The offensive line.
Where is our offensive line? Now, I know we spent extensive time talking about it on last week's episode, where we were talking about how going into the Arlington game, not last week, but the week before, there was one guy that was from the original lineup, and he got hurt in that game. So we're playing with all new players.
Yep.
But at this point, we can't keep going to that excuse. Like, we cannot keep talking about, oh, it's the replacement players. Oh, it's the replacement players. There has to be some kind of cohesion, some kind of unity in that offensive line. Otherwise, this is what we can expect every season.
Well, yeah. I mean, and we haven't mentioned it yet, but everybody who watched the game knows Ben Kurt got hurt. Got hit and fractured his ribs.
Fractured 3 ribs. He's out for the rest of the season.
Out for the season. 3 quarterbacks done.
Hurt. 3 quarterbacks in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, and now we've got, Jawan can't pass. And
ouch. Be nice.
And we did pick up, our newest player as of this morning. Paxton Lynch. But are we going to see him this week? I mean, I'm almost wanted to say that quarterbacks might not want to come play for us with the way our line is, the way they keep dropping and getting hurt. So,
well, none of the quarterbacks that we need to be able to be successful with the receivers that we have are probably looking at San Antonio, honestly. And that's, I hate saying this because I don't want to make this sound like a diss towards Ward or anything like that, or, the offensive coordinator. But facts are facts, man. We need an offensive line. And until we get an offensive line, we're not going to be able to really get anything more than a scramble play out, because the quarterbacks and the receivers and running backs are not going to have enough time to understand the full complexity of the playbook, because we keep alternating players out because everybody keeps getting hurt.
Yeah.
We have got to make them push for some solid O linemen that can do the job and hold for the quarterback at least 3 seconds so he can get, a 3-step drop, get a receiver open, and put it on target.
And it's so, we early in the season, you could tell, and just the way the team was built, Ward wanted us to be a rush heavy team. And it's just we don't have the line for it, and so we had the players for what Ward wanted us to be. Heavy rushers. We had Cone, who, if he's got a pocket, he can be successful. Yeah, he's not going to burn you deep, but he can march you down the field. But the line didn't pan out to what what was expected of it. Right. So now we're scrambling, trying to change the identity of the team completely, and to keep getting players hurt.
Right.
So we keep changing.
Now, I'm going to take the counter on that point that you made. I mean, we were both at both of the meet and greets. We both got to listen to the same hype speech that Coach gave. But I don't know that we built the team that he was specifically looking for. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because, we had some pretty solid talent. We had some good receivers. We had a back that was more like a halfback who could catch in the backfield. So, I mean, we had options, but I don't think attention was paid enough to the offensive line.
Oh, absolutely not.
I think it was more a second thought, an afterthought when these players were getting picked up, because if you look at how shoddy the offensive line was from the first game, even remember, I mean, we were talking about it then.
Yeah.
When Cone came into the game, and we're like, dude, what's the problem here? Immediately, we identified the offensive line. So
just no time, and it's been like that all season long, except for the Orlando game. That was the only game that our line gave enough time to the quarterback.
Right. And going back to that, and we said it from week one that and we when everybody was jumping on bashing pass, we were the only, I shouldn't say we were the only ones, but we were definitely on Cone's side saying, hey, this isn't all on the quarterback, right? The offensive line is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Now, I still stick by that, right? I think if Cone had a better offensive line, he would have done okay.
Oh, I think so too.
But that goes back to what you had just said, that Ward was focused on a rush-heavy team, but I don't think it was staffed correctly to support us being a rush-heavy team.
Right.
So, so at the end of the day, we just did not perform. Now, thankfully, Houston and Arlington did us a big favor by taking those L's, right? We talked about McClendon. Vegas on the ground, they were 90 yards, 29 attempts. Pretty impressive. In the air, 21 receptions out of 31 targets. That's not bad. And then 264 yards in the air, right? Looks like Sexton had himself a little bit of a day. 4 receptions for 72 yards. Longest was 25. He was targeted 4 times.
Yep.
Looking at these numbers, though, a lot of these guys that were targeted, they caught the ball. Geronimo Allison, former Packers player, and he was a starter. 3 receptions, 3 targets. Sean Price, 4 targets, 3 receptions. Rod Smith, 3 targets, 3 receptions.
Yep.
Right? Bidet, 3 and 2. Dylan, 4 and 2. Right? Like, the only guy who didn't do like supremely well is this Cam Sutton. He was targeted 5 times, only caught 2. Now, could that be the defense? Maybe, right? Maybe they were able to break some up, but we saw that our defense did not show up the way they've always been the past 6 weeks, right? Our defense has been able to keep us in most of these games or keep them close. This one was the first one where we've been blown out by more than a touchdown, and it was bad, right? We had some really good friends over at the game. If you watched it on TV, you saw El Mariachi de San Anto that was at the game, and ESPN turned to him at just the right time when he was like this, all mad and frustrated, and rightfully so. But
you know what? The rest of us had that exact same look at home.
Mm-hmm. And that's the way it's kind of been for a lot of this season, right? You want to love them, you want to root for them, and then the wheels fall off, and you're like, dang it, here we go, right? But it's okay. Hope springs eternal, right? Because, again, we still have a chance. This next week, we're going to be going up against a beat-up Houston Roughnecks, and I agree with El Mariachi. He keeps talking about the fact that what kind of Roughnecks do you have in Houston? What kind of oil drilling do you have? That's all West Texas stuff. So I think the Roughnecks are trying to play off of the Oilers history and you know, that love and sentimentality. But I think they're going to wind up just like the Oilers, and they're going to stink up that game too. But we'll get to next week's schedule in a bit. So yeah, overall, not a great showing by San Antonio. Vegas definitely came out to play, and we just were not ready.
Yeah.
We just were not ready.
You know, and we said it before, but man, that first drive by Ben Kurt, it looked so promising, and oh man, it felt like the first game against Arlington when with Sinnott's first game, man, just came out, just moved the offense, everything flowed, went down for a score, and then he got hurt. So
yep,
it was, it just felt like that again.
Yep, it was not good overall. So the next game of the week was DC at Orlando. And that was by far one of the best games of the XFL season. So did you catch any of that game?
So I actually missed that game live because I was watching the Brahmas game on demand because I had my basketball games all during the Saturday during the day. So I did catch the recap of the DC and Orlando game. So
it was a great game. I had to watch. Yeah, I had to watch the games on replay also. We were tied up with soccer tournaments, and at least I can, yell at those kids, right, when they're not doing well. But Tamu had himself a pretty good game. 21-29, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's pretty awesome. But Dormady had himself a day, right? 27-34, 328, average 9.6, 3 touchdowns. That's phenomenal. And I know we talked about this guy before, but with a game like that, if he continues putting up those numbers, he is definitely in the talk for MVP for the season. So I know I'm still sticking by McCarron and a couple of others. Borgie definitely is in the talk for MVP. I'm sorry, McCarron's favorite target, Prohl. He's definitely MVP worthy. But let's get back to the DC game. So this thing started out a dogfight right from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Right? DC scores. St. Louis comes back and scores. Then DC scores again. And St. Louis comes back and scores.
Orlando.
I'm sorry, Orlando. I'm getting lost on the games. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
But they I'm sorry, I had it wrong. DC scored, and then Orlando came back and scored. And then DC had to punt it away, and then DC scored, right? Orlando scored.
Orlando scored 2 in a row, and then
and then DC comes back and scores a touchdown. Then Orlando is forced to punt, and then DC scores, so they take the lead. And then Orlando gets the ball; they're forced to punt. Then DC's forced to punt, and then we're in the we're already in the second quarter at this point. So it was just back and forth, man, back and forth. It was a battle. Second quarter, DC scores 8 points, Orlando scores 6. So at this point, DC's ahead, and it's looking like DC's going to run away with it. Then we come back after halftime. DC is held to 6 points. Meanwhile, Orlando racks up 13. Right? And so they get the jump. And then DC is forced to really, dig in and try and fight back. And, they were just pushing, just almost could not get it done. We had a fumble by Orlando towards the end of the game. And then DC winds up fumbling, right? And so Orlando gets the ball back. And so it's like, okay, they've got the deal sealed. Everything's fine. They're going to drive down. They're going to score a touchdown or even a field goal and really, kind of put it out of reach, right? And then they punt, right? And so I'm thinking, oh, great. Here comes the Orlando team we all know and all despise. And then DC pushes it and does not get that last field goal. They shanked it wide right.
64-yarder, I think is what it was. Or or 62, 63, something like that. Yeah, it was wide right, and it was just a little short too.
63-yard field goal.
Yeah.
And it was wide right. But the impressive thing, though, was that it had the leg.
No, it was short. It would have been short by a yard or two.
I remember it going alongside. Well, maybe it was the angle that made it look that way, but I thought for sure it would have been.
From the angle when they showed it in the game, like behind it, it looked like it was long enough but wide right. But they showed another angle from like right under the crossbar. The ref had to like get out of the way because it was about to hit him.
Oh, that would have been funny if that would have happened. That kind of stuff never gets to happen, right?
No.
So, but yeah, overall, I would say arguably that was the game of the week. That was DC maybe taking Orlando a little bit too lightly, and that wound up costing them. Maybe their game plan wasn't quite set up the way it should have been. And let's be honest, they got smoked, right?
Yeah.
And that goes to show you that any team in the XFL, like you can't count any team out. And we're guilty of it ourselves. We've been counting Orlando out the last several weeks. And
I mean, every week, whoever plays it, we say they get the bye week. So, the egg on our face.
Yep. DC got destroyed.
Yep. And Buckley saved his job. So,
no, I think he's probably going to get fired for this because he won one. He wasn't supposed to win.
Yeah.
All right. Last game of the week. The St. Louis Battle Chickens. Well, this week I'm going to call them the Battle Hawks. They've earned it, right? They did us a huge solid, and they took out the Houston Rubbernecks. So this was a game that was worth watching just simply because we wanted to see Houston not do well, and they 100% lived up to it.
They had played horribly. Like I said before, you just saw coaching mistake after coaching mistake. The way they handled that the end of the first half, just not using timeouts right, not, maybe that's just letting the clock run out when they shouldn't. And they gifted St. Louis a field goal at the end of the half.
They did.
It was absolutely horrible clock management by Wade.
Well, I mean, what do you expect? It's Wade Phillips.
Yeah. He was definitely a son of a bum that game.
Yep. So sorry, daughters are home. This was definitely one of those games again, like I said, that it turned out the way that we definitely wanted it to. So McCarron, of course, 26-34, 222 yards, average 6.5, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, right? Had himself a game. His backup
took a scary hit, to his shoulder that one. That's why, Tiano came in for those couple plays.
Yeah, his backup came in.
St. Louis was holding their breath for a while when he ran into that tent.
Oh, 100%. But they were able to put some of that Miyagi magic on it and get him back out there. So, but that, Tiano went 1 of 2, 5 yards, right? Not bad. McDonald, in the meantime, went 15-32, 106 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. On the ground, St. Louis put up 66 yards. Biggest rush was by Brian Hill for 15. Houston, on the other hand, they had themselves a rushing day. 136 yards on the ground. Borghi, of course, 46 yards total. Longest was 23. So, bulk of it was pretty much on Borghi.
And it was a group effort. You had Borghi with 46, McDonald had 40, Aline had 39. It was a group rushing effort by them all.
Well, and that's what you can do when you have an offensive line that can actually create holes for you.
Exactly.
So, receiving, of course, Shepard blew it up, right? 7 receptions. He was targeted 8 times, 70 yards total. Everybody else, pretty much high 20s. And Prohl, I know for a fact. I mean, we saw it. He was double covered a lot.
Yeah.
And 4 targets, 2 2 receptions, 17 yards total. On the other side, Bird did a lot of the work for Houston. 7 receptions, 50 yards. He was targeted 9 times. So he was definitely breaking coverage. On the other side, though, Burnett targeted 9 times, only caught 3, right? So Houston definitely had their defense in this game. And we, of course, we had 1 fumble by McDonald and lost that. Hill had 2 fumbles, lost both of those. That kind of stuff, it happens. Defense, of course, was pretty solid, but no major kick returns, no real action on that side. But again, great game and a great opportunity for us that we kind of fumbled ourselves.
We did.
But that's okay.
But we didn't lose any ground. We didn't gain any ground, but we didn't lose any either. So,
Right. So we are now looking at an interesting playoff scenario. We're still what 2 games? No, we're a game behind.
We're still third. We're 1 game behind Arlington right now.
Right. We're 1 game behind Arlington, 2 games behind Houston. So we have the potential to surge. And we've got a really tough schedule coming up. But then again, so does Houston and so does Arlington.
Yeah.
And so we could easily still make a run at this. So next week's games, we're looking at Vegas at St. Louis. We've got Arlington going to Orlando. Maybe that's not such a tough game, but we'll see what happens. Maybe Arlington is now finally together. Houston's coming to see us, and we're going to be at that game. We'll broadcast live before the game, and Houston better be ready, right? Mm-hmm. We did not get the chance to go to Houston and make fun of them in their house, but you better believe we are going to defend the 2-1-0
on they'll hear
Sunday.
Us.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, you've got what is going to be arguably the game of the week. You've got DC going to Seattle. I think that's probably going to be a huge game.
We've been saying the last few weeks, Seattle's starting to surge. Could they be, one of the top 2 teams up in the North? And this is their barometer right here.
Yep. Well, if you look at the standings right now, Seattle's only 1 game behind DC, but then again, so is St. Louis.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a neck and neck battle, right? You've got DC at 6-1, and then St. Louis and Seattle both at 5-2. Vegas has been eliminated because of how well the other 2 teams have done. They're the only team that's been eliminated from the playoffs, though.
Yep.
So some crazy
which
things.
Is kind of sad for the South. 1-6 Orlando still has a shot at the playoffs.
Yep.
So I mean, even football, anything can happen, but whoever makes the playoffs in the South is going to have their work cut out for them in that championship game.
Yep.
So
let's talk about our predictions for this next week. Vegas at St. Louis. What are you thinking? Who are you picking?
I'm picking St. Louis. I know Vegas is talking crap on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, but I see St. Louis taking this one.
Mm-hmm. I think based on the last game that Vegas played, they're probably feeling pretty cocky because they beat pretty much one of the best defenses out there. The problem is San Antonio lost that game.
Nope.
Vegas did not win that game. Vegas did not beat San Antonio. San Antonio beat San Antonio, right? We did not show up on offense as great as we thought we were going to, especially with our starting quarterback getting hurt and Pass going in and having a rough game himself, because as we've talked about, Pass has the potential to be a really good quarterback, but he needs time. He needs experience behind a guy who's got time in, and he's just not quite there yet. And, again, not trying to knock him, not trying to put him down or anything like that. He just doesn't have the playing time that most of these other quarterbacks in the NFL do, or the XFL do, right? So I'm picking St. Louis at home. That for me is a lock. No problem. Arlington at Orlando.
Lightning going to strike twice again?
Man, I don't know. because we're talking about an Orlando team that's coming off of a huge victory.
Yep.
And we're talking about an Arlington team that is on a downhill slide. Are they going to be able to figure it out? Is Stoops going to be able to find some of that old Stoops magic and be able to pull it off? Or is Orlando, because they're lightning hot after beating DC, are they going to keep it going? I don't know. I don't think there's enough information here for me to be able to make a prediction. But the only thing I can say safely is that it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be a super close game, or it is going to be an absolute blowout. And I just don't know which one it's going to be, and I don't know who's going to take it. So
you're voting present on this pick?
I am 100% voting present.
Okay.
Who are you picking?
I'm not going to vote present. I'm going to say Orlando does it again.
Okay.
I'm going to say Orlando.
Okay. And I can understand why. I mean, Orlando has not been a horrible team. They've not been they've shown flashes of greatness in some of their plays, right? Maybe now they finally found the secret recipe. Maybe they found the right tune, and now Dormady is, he's off his leash and he's able to start lighting things up.
Yep.
So maybe they do pull this off. I think there's too many unknown factors in this game for me to safely be able to make a decision one way or another. So I'm just voting present. So let's talk about our game of the week, which is going to be Houston at San Antonio.
Oh, I'm taking us.
That's 100%
100% us.
Yes.
I mean,
now the reality, if you were not a Brahmas fan, who would you take in this fight?
Non-Brahmas fan. I mean, this is a hard one to pick because Houston's been playing like crap these last few weeks. They've looked really bad, but so has San Antonio. I mean, well, offensively, we have looked really bad because we don't have a set quarterback. Now, defensively, we've looked amazing. And even with the stumble last week, we still lead the XFL in points allowed. So, we have arguably the best defense in the league, which is why we've been in the games that, even as subpar as our offense has been in, they've been close games. It's because of our defense. So, not non-Brahmas fan, I could vote present for this one because you can see both sides.
Yeah.
But no, Brahmas fan, I'm definitely going Brahmas for this one.
Okay. As a Brahmas fan, of course, I'm voting for the Brahmas, right? We are the home field advantage. We are going to make sure that we are present and we are in everybody's ear. The fake cadence calls, I mean, you name it. We're going to piss everybody off.
Oh, I want to hear, go back and replay and watch the game and just hear Wade just stumbling while he's talking, stuttering. Just because we're so loud.
Yep. And that means all you Brahmas fans, everybody that's out there, we need you guys to pack the dome. Make sure that you are there. I understand it's Easter and there's plenty of time to go have you some Jesus time and still get to the game. The game is at 2:00. Okay.
Hey, Brahmas are offering the deal. Buy one, get one tickets. They're having a little Easter egg hunt for the kids after the game. Bring the family.
Well, hopefully they're having the Easter egg hunt in the dome and not like out in the parking lot, because that might be a little bit crazy. Hopefully they thought that part out.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. Now, as a non-Brahmas fan, going off of what you said, Houston is on a downhill slide. Okay. Last three games, arguably, you can see the progressive decline. San Antonio's defense has not stumbled except for the last game. I don't think there's enough indicator there to make me doubt San Antonio's defense showing up. If San Antonio's defense does show up, they're going to shut down the one weapon that Houston has, which is their offense.
Yep.
They're a high-powered, high-scoring offense. If we can shut that down, then we have a very good chance. And so as a non-Brahmas fan, I would lean towards picking the Brahmas also, just simply because they have the recipe to shut down that scoring unit of Houston. So Brahmas all the way across the board. Now, DC at Seattle. That, again, is going to be arguably the game of the week this week and is going to be probably your closest quality to XFL or to NFL as you're going to find in this league. So who are you taking?
You asked me last week. I probably would have taken Seattle this game. But I think I'm going to lean to DC just because, they took Orlando lightly, and they're not going to do that again this week.
Yep.
So I'm taking DC.
100%. One of the things that Ward was talking about from that game is taking away some privileges from the players, right? Such as music on the field, different luxuries that they've kind of gotten accustomed to and gotten used to. And I think Barlow's the coach of DC, right? I think so. Or whoever the coach is.
Yeah.
I think because they lost to the worst team in the XFL, statistically, that he was pissed. And he has probably been riding his players all week long. They probably have not had a second to breathe, let alone enjoy any of their practices. He's probably been drilling them on the basics and complex plays and yelling and just getting in people's faces and treating them like garbage because arguably they lost.
I'd say they played like they didn't play like garbage.
No, they definitely didn't play like garbage.
They played a great game. It's just they let a team that they shouldn't have play a better game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of that's going to go back to, part of it's going to go back to the defense, right? Part of it is they just flat out got outplayed.
Yeah.
Right. So defense is definitely getting an earful. I promise you that. Offense is probably getting ripped also because they should have scored more. What's his name? Tamu shouldn't have fumbled.
Yep.
Right. Things like that are not supposed to happen, especially when you're on the ropes by a team that's killing you. You just don't make those mistakes. So I really think that DC is going to be coming in, lean, mean, fighting machine. And I think they're going to beat Seattle, but I don't think they're going to beat Seattle by much. I'm thinking the spread is probably going to be less than 8 points. I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I think DC
I can see that. I can see about a 5-point game for it.
Mm-hmm. I think DC will pull it off in the end, but it's going to be a nail biter for them, right? Because again, Seattle isn't messing around, but neither is St. Louis, right? They're gunning for number one. And so they're doing the same things that DC is going to be doing, right? As far as prep for the game, the practices being like extremely brutal, really trying to drill those mistakes out of the players. So that way, when they do get into the game, they execute the game plan perfectly. They try and walk out with the win. Yep. So, but I think that that's going to be the game of the week. I really think that that's going to be the one that everybody's going to want to watch. So definitely fans around the league, make sure you get out, support your team. Everybody in Seattle, show up to that game. I think they're playing in a soccer stadium or something, but that's okay. It doesn't matter.
Right? Seattle's not playing in a soccer stadium. They're playing in the aren't they playing in the Seahawks?
No, they're not. Maybe.
It
doesn't look like it on TV though.
I thought it was just Arlington and Vegas that were playing in the baseball stadiums.
Maybe, but I'll have to look into it because I really don't. Their stadium does not look like it would be the one for the Seahawks. No, the Seahawks play indoors, don't they?
No.
Okay, we'll have to figure that. We'll do some research, folks. We'll figure that one out. We'll get back to you.
So they play in Lumen Field. Is where Seattle plays.
Okay.
Let's see.
While Brian's looking that up,
it is the Seahawks.
Really?
Yeah. So the Dragons play in the same stadium as the Seahawks.
Interesting. Okay. Well, so then there you go. But that should be the game of the week. It's going to be an incredible game. I'm hoping that the Brahms game is going to be an incredible game. We, of course, will be there live, and we'll be broadcasting live from the game. And do not expect to hear very, very audible voices on next Tuesday, because we are going to just dump everything on the field, right?
We'll be a little raspy.
Let's make that a lot raspy.
Yeah.
But
so, speaking of live football, we have more than just the Brahmas games this weekend.
We do. So, for those that are fans of Texas football, the National Arena League football league or series starts on Saturday, April 8th, right? So we are going to be, where's my schedule?
We're playing the Carolina Cobras.
Well, who's we?
The San Antonio Gunslingers, that is.
That would be the San Antonio Gunslingers, okay? We have some friends over at the Gunslingers podcast that will most likely be covering that game. They're covering the Brahmas right now, but their primary focus has been the Gunslingers. And so they'll definitely, I mean, if you're looking for them, if you watch them, they're around. They'll be talking about that, especially a lot now that we're getting ready to go into the season. The National Arena League has quite a few teams. Well, I say quite a few teams. It is a total of 7 teams. I'm pretty sure that they had 6 last year, so they did pick up somebody new. There are 3 names that anybody that was a fan of the AFL, Arena Football League, that they should recognize. And that's going to be the Albany Empire, the Jacksonville Sharks, and the Orlando Predators. These used to be some incredible teams and play some incredible games, right? Because of the way that the NAL was run the last several years and it going defunct, a lot of these teams pulled out before everything fell apart. And some of them plugged into, the National Arena League. There's also the Indoor Football League that got a couple of teams. We bring that up because they have a Texas team as well. And that's going to be the Frisco Fighters. But the Iowa Barnstormers and the Arizona Rattlers, the Arizona Rattlers were champions quite a few times in the AFL. But let's go back to, and in fact, I probably should bring up their schedule. Okay. It looks like they've already started. And so that's one that got by me. They started on March 17th, and wouldn't you know it, the Frisco Fighters seem to be doing okay, right? So that's something that we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on for Texas football. But let's get back to the NAL, because that's at least here in San Antonio. This week, pardon me, we do have a game, and it is going to be the Gunslingers facing off against the Carolina Cobras at the Freeman Coliseum. Hey, what's up, Brian? Brian Wensloff. We see you there, guy.
What's up, Brian? Thanks for joining.
And he's gone. So that's okay. That's okay. But Freeman Coliseum is a very interesting place. There's a lot of history there. There's been a lot of rodeos that have been done there, a lot of graduations, a lot of footballs even been played there. One thing that they don't
have a lot of? They don't have a lot of tailgating.
They don't have any tailgating.
No tailgating.
So we bring that up because Brian and I, of course, were watching them last season when they went. They didn't have the greatest schedule, or I'm sorry, the greatest results. But Coach Fred Shaw, who was a player with the San Antonio Talons, he did get Coach of the Year because they started out really, really bad, and he turned it around, right? He made a lot of very impactful moves, moved some players off the team, got some new players on the roster, put other players in key positions that they weren't originally in, and he turned the season around. Did not turn out to necessarily be a winning season, but it was a pretty good season. It was a good brand of football to watch. So we're hoping that the San Antonio Gunslingers have a pretty good run this season. And Shaw has definitely been at several of the Brahmas events. He's been at several of the events that were at Alamo. We saw him in the parking lot tailgating with us. Went and said, hey, told him we were excited about the season, of course. And of course, like I said, Brian and I will be there. Now, we're not going to go all out because we want to save it for the Brahmas game, but we will be there showing our support, and we will be making plenty of noise. We've got our boat whistles ready, right? We're going to be annoying. So we'll do what we can to support the team. But again, there are 2 Texas teams in this league as well. And the other team is the West Texas Warbirds, and I'm trying to figure out where they're from.
They play in Ector County Coliseum.
Ector, I don't even know where that is. Like, what city are they closest to?
I'm gonna guess it's in West Texas.
Well, it's definitely, because it says West Texas Warbirds. But
it's right down the road from Odessa.
Okay. So maybe they should be the West Texas Roughnecks, and then Houston could be the Houston Warbirds. Maybe they should talk and trade some names.
All right, Houston Rednecks.
Houston Rednecks, that's close enough.
Houston Rubbernecks, whatever.
Yeah. But again, we're super excited about the start of the season. We hope for great things for Coach Shaw and the team. We, of course, will be there. We're probably not going to go live just because, again, we've got our focus and we want to support the team. But we've got our focus on the Brahmas because, things are playing out to be very interesting. I mean, there's a lot on the line right now. So we definitely want to, support the Brahmas as much as we possibly can. The season basically is going to start April 8th, and it's going to run until July 29th. So we've got plenty of time to circle back and cover the NAL. Now, going back to the IFL, which has already started, we do have, again, the Frisco Fighters. They look to be 3-0. And this week, they're going to be going up against nobody because they have the bye week. But it looks like there's some incredible games. They're all going to be on Saturday. I'm sorry, there's one on Sunday. And there's some movement there. So we'll definitely keep an eye on them as well and just kind of see what's going on with that. But, again, we want to support all Texas football. So we're definitely going to be pulling for Frisco. Although I will say Green Bay does have a team. It's a Green Bay Blizzard. And I know Reggie White was their coach, at least for a while. So, I might have a little bit of love for Green Bay also.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how that goes. Now, for the other league that we want to talk about, okay? That is the USFL. They're going to be starting in 2 weeks? It starts April 15th. And if I can bring up my calendar.
April 15th.
Yes, if I can bring up my calendar. Yeah,
that means next weekend is when it starts.
That's basically a week and a half from today.
Yep.
The reason why we're bringing those guys up is because Houston has a team there.
No, Houston, good old Houston Gamblers.
Mm-hmm. They actually don't even play next week. Okay? They don't play until April 22nd. So they've got a bye right off the back. Or right off the bat, I'm sorry.
No, that's Houston plays Michigan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally missed that. Yeah. So Sunday, April 16th. I'm seeing a lot of coverage on Fox, a little bit of NBC, some FS1. They also got USA on their broadcast schedule. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So, as things are really heating up, the USFL is going to be kicking off, right? We're going to keep an eye on that as well because, again, we've got a Texas team in there, and so we want all Texas football to do well. But I'm really interested to see how this is going to play out with two competing leagues having a team in the same city and how attendance is going to do. Because I'm not even sure that any of these teams, I mean, there's some of them that are going to be in their stadiums, but not all of them.
They're doing 4 hubs this year, correct?
That I know of. They are going to do, well, no, they can't. Yeah, I think they're doing 4 hubs. The one we've got
so Houston and Michigan are playing in Memphis.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like Birmingham, Memphis, Canton, and Detroit are the 4 hubs.
Okay.
So, but again, like that was a really weird model from the very beginning, right? Having all 8 teams playing out of one hub, whereas the XFL does all their practices out of the hub, but they all play in their home cities. And so I'm really, really surprised, honestly, that the USFL has come back for a second season. I know they're taking a lot of shots at the XFL and calling it real football and all those other things. And honestly, you know, Danny and The Rock, they just laugh about it. XFL has much better contracts and contacts with the NFL. Players that play for the XFL probably are going to have a better chance of getting into or back into the NFL simply because of their time and the better TV time, better TV coverage. You know, things are, I think, just going to be a little bit better for the players that are in the XFL.
Yeah.
Now, the schedule for the USFL is a little bit more appealing, right? Most of the games are at like 11 or 3 on Saturdays and Sundays. There's a couple of variances, of course.
Yeah, you got a 9 o'clock on a Saturday.
For us, yeah, which is weird. You know, the latest game that I'm seeing for the USFL is 6 p.m. on a Sunday Central.
Well, no, they got, let's see, week 3, they've got a 7 p.m. They got a couple 7 p.m.s. They've got
one 8 o'clock game on a Saturday, but that's on a Saturday.
Week 7. Week 7. What I'm looking at is 9 p.m. Maybe it's Eastern time.
That's 9 p.m. Eastern. I'm bringing up Central. So your computer apparently is lost.
Must be. Well, so, I'm looking right at the XFL website. So you know.
Are you looking at the XFL website?
USFL website. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, because the XFL everything is in Eastern time.
Yeah.
But on the USFL, I'm looking at it and it's showing everything Central.
Oh yeah, this one's showing Eastern time. So
okay. So again, right, Houston, meh, right? They're gonna have a team. I'm really, really interested to see how fan support is for that team and for the league specifically, being that this is year 1 for the XFL, but it's year 2 for the USFL, and they're still not in their host cities, right? They're in these hubs. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how many people are actually, you know, running around supporting the Houston Gamblers, especially if they don't have a great year, versus the support that the Roughnecks are drawing. Now, I will say that we do have it confirmed that there are going to be some Roughnecks fans in the house because it's only a 2.5 hour drive to San Antonio. But they better make sure they're bringing trucks because that L that they're going to take is going to be pretty heavy for them to carry. You're not going to be able to put that in a car. So, you know, show up with your fancy jacked up 4x4s that have never seen an ounce of mud. You come here to this working class city and we're going to give you a working class beat down. And I almost wish that we had a USFL team so we could do the same thing to the Houston team over there too. But so that's football in a nutshell. Now, any news on Cowboys front?
Not that I know of. It seems to be all quiet on the NFL front. I think we talked about a couple weeks ago. It seems like the entire NFL is just kind of waiting for the Aaron Rodgers trade before things start moving, really. So
yeah, what I'm seeing specifically in the news about the NFL is just everybody's mock drafts about who's going where, what prospects, blah blah blah. I know I'm getting a lot of updates on Packers visiting with some of the top 30 draft candidates and just trying to see give them private workouts, see how they fit, things like that. But I'm not seeing anybody really talking about what the target is. So I'm looking up the date for the NFL draft.
April 27th.
Right. So things are probably going to be all quiet on the front until the week before, or maybe even the week of, right? Because we've got basically 1, 2, 3 weeks before the NFL draft. I have a sneaking suspicion that we are not going to see anything happen until the week of, like the 24th, where they actually start making some progress with the Aaron Rodgers draft. And we almost may not even hear anything then, right? Because it almost seems like they're at a stalemate. The Jets, they want Rodgers.
Yep.
But it doesn't seem like they're willing to give up what the asking price is, because keep in mind, they're going to be inheriting an aging quarterback who may or may not still have the juice with a humongous price tag. Even though the Packers are going to be, responsible for some of that, they're not going to be responsible for all of it, and they're not responsible for most of it.
Yeah.
So the Jets are taking a big chance by counting on Rodgers to be able to do anything with him. And they've only picked up one of his favorite targets. So, and that was Alan Lazard, who arguably is not the best receiver in the NFL. His numbers are overinflated because his quarterback was Aaron Rodgers. You give him a Derek Carr or something like that, probably not going to be that great of a receiver. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Randall Cobb, if he decides to make a jump or if he's going to ride the love boat. You like what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
But all that to say, I think we're going to be in a holding pattern until the week of, and then there's going to be an extreme flurry of activity. People trading away players, trying to get, moves up in the draft. Yeah. You're going to see a lot of trades in the draft, or, for those draft picks. A lot of people are going to basically mortgage the house to try and get some of these candidates that are coming out. And there's some pretty decent talent in this year's draft pool. It's not like 2-3 years ago when it was all wide receiver heavy. You've got a kind of a good smattering across the board. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But that being said, so we've got a lot going on in the XFL. We've got the IFL, which has already kicked off, and is, in fact, 4 weeks deep into the season already. The NAL kicks off this next weekend.
Right.
USFL kicks off next weekend, and we've got the NFL draft coming up in 2.5 weeks. So lots of football action. Lots of stuff.
We have a lot of football to talk about.
Yep. So, guys, stay tuned. Make sure that you're watching Texans Talking Football. We'll be coming to you live from the Brahmas Rubbernecks game. We're definitely going to have a bunch of news to talk about here in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you stay tuned, and we appreciate you guys for watching. Brian, you got anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Nope, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it.
All right. Well, as always, guys, we love you, and we're out.
Later.